Congressman Matheson says, we'll all be speaking on the same page. Especially Lieutenant Governor Bell, coming in here from the state of Utah. I appreciate that, as well as County Commissioner from Carbon County. I appreciate him coming this way. I think there's a couple of county commissioners out there that he will be speaking on your behalf. I'd also like to thank Bryson Garbett for coming in here. I just have to tell you that we go back a long ways. When I was first elected to the state legislature, I was the youngest member there. And as such, I was given this ugly baby doll that I had to keep. For the first 3 terms in the state legislature, I had to keep that stupid baby doll. Until my 4th term, when finally Bryson Garbett was elected from the west side of Salt Lake, and I was able to pass that doll on to somebody else who was finally younger than I in the Utah State Legislature. So I appreciate you being here, and I apologize for losing your cell number. And sometime I'll have to tell you what happened to the racket, the squash racket that I had to buy because of you. But I appreciate having that on here. This is an interesting, for all of you here, for all of us, I appreciate the chance of being here and our fellow members here. But let me talk specifically about the one bill that is a unique impact to those of us here in the state of Utah. One of the things that will be presented in here is the concept of land and land use. This is not an either-or supposition. It's not that we either have wilderness or we have degradation of this particular land. All of the land here is already public land. It has a form of protection associated with it that is currently being done by professionals on the field. If we can start with the first slide up here, just to give you an idea of why this bill becomes a significant interest of the state of Utah. The bill that you can actually see, that just cover my congressional district, is now going back to the others, is the state of Utah. Everything that is colored in there is owned by the federal government, which means 67% of my state is owned by the federal government. That produces certain concepts and certain issues that which we will always be dealing with. Go to the next one, if you will. The reason why I'm chairman of the Western Caucus, if for no other reason, is because all the colored land in there is land that is owned by the federal government. And if you even go to the larger one, which is the third one, which is looking at the entire nation, you will see that once again, the land that is in red and the land that is colored is land that's owned by the federal government. It seems to be disproportionate if you look at the map and where it has to be generated. There are 653 million acres of land owned by the federal government. 1 in every 3 acres is owned by the federal government, and 90% of that land is congregated in the west, where 1 out of every 2 acres is owned by the federal government, except in states like Utah, where that percentage is even higher. Utah is larger than all of the New England states put together. And in the state of Utah, we have 8 million acres of Forest Service land, 3 million acres of Park Service land, 24 million acres of BLM land, 9 million acres of state land, and 10 million acres owned by the private sector. There's 10 million acres of private land. We now want to create 9 million acres of wilderness. That means 18% of Utah has to support the rest of the state. That's almost analogous to New York City was supposed to provide all the services to those cities only by generating money that can come from taxes from Staten Island. And it is one of the reasons why Utah has a significant interest in this bill and why you'll find that the Utah delegation is united in this opposition to this particular form and process in the bill. I want you to hold up a couple of slides we have over, or maps that I have over here too. First one is the infamous blue map. The infamous blue map. Blue map is blocked with the amount of federal acreage in every state in the nation. And you see, once again, there is a unique phenomenon to that. Now hold up the one that deals with education funding. The states in red in this one are the states that have the most difficult time in funding their public education. The states where the growth of public education is slowest. And you will notice there's almost a 1-to-1 correlation between public land states and the inability of funding education. One of the problems I have with this particular bill is that every state in the West, with all those public lands, was promised elements that would help their public education funding when they were made states with the Enabling Act. None of those promises have ever been delivered. So it's one of those simple situations that whenever you do changes to public lands in Utah, there will be collateral damage, and there will be collateral damage to its kids. My kid's education is put in danger. When 77 leases were pulled unilaterally in the state of Utah, not only did it make UInnovation unemployment go from 1.5% 8% almost overnight, but it sterilized other lands not part of those leases. And it also inhibited the ability of funding education in the state of Utah. If my kids are going to have a decent education in Utah, my state has to have a balanced economy, which includes development of manufacturing and a mining base to go along with tourism, because tourism by itself is not enough. Utah State University did a study on the impact of wilderness, the only real conclusive study that's been. And as they found, while there are numerous impacts that are not quantifiable, the economic gains from wilderness recreation appear to be inconsequential and may likely be more than offset by losses associated with the decline in activities incompatible with the wilderness. They went on further to say that the research concluded that some users' communities will be severely impacted by wilderness designation, and the wilderness designation could seriously impede economic development in some areas of the state. The economy of state is not uniformly impacted, but it has impacts, which is why, and this is why, I would like now to make a motion to be announced that a letter from the Utah State Board of Education be inserted in the record, who is opposed to this proposal. That the School and Institutional Trust Land Association testimony be inserted in the record, which is opposed to this legislation. That the National Education Association letter, which is opposed to this legislation, be put in the record. As well as the letter from the governor of the state of Utah opposed to it. A resolution from the state legislature opposed to it. A letter from the state legislative leaders opposed to it. A letter from the 16 counties impacted by this unanimously opposed to it. A resolution from the National Association of Counties that is opposed to this particular legislation. I'd like to make that as a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Objection.
Thank you. Let me go on to a couple of other pictures if we could for a minute, because there are 4 concerns I have with this piece of legislation. One is the impact it has. Second, on the state of Utah. Second, the impact it has on public education. The third is simply the process of this particular bill. This bill, produced without a map, so we know exactly where they want to do, has had some research done, and it is now called the Red Rocks Bill, with the association that there is beautiful scenery out there to be protected. There is. But that is not what these 9 million acres will be. And remember, the wilderness by federal definition has to be land that is untraveled by human nature. This would be part of the Red Rock Wilderness Bill. This, as you notice, are some of those areas that would be included in the inventory, even though the bill is not specific. To get to 9 million acres, you have to have this. That, of course, on the bottom right, is not a man-made institution. That came there by nature. If you slip back up there again, the road that goes through this area obviously was made by some glacier during the Jurassic period, because man didn't do that at all. This is part of the beautiful Red Rock scenery, which probably won't make it on one of the calendars that you want to sell from this area, but I'm sure would have somebody from back east wanting to backpack through those particular areas. There are beautiful, pristine areas of Utah that need to be protected. But this bill goes far, far beyond that. Go to the next one, too. This is another one of those that would be included. That, of course, is not a man-made structure for oil and gas development. Those are molecules of nature that have hidden yourself, showing their sense of humor by developing in that particular way. Obviously something you would want to protect. Go to the next one if you would as well. Because embedded in this acreage are acres of stories that are natural gas, oil areas, mining areas, all of which have an impact on the economy of those particular areas. But the problem with this bill is the map is not there, the homework has not been done. The second problem with this bill is it undoes the Washington County bill, it undoes the Cedar Mountain bill, and everything we have done to move forward in the state of Utah to make progress will be undone by the sloppy craftsmanship of this particular bill. And the process is appalling. I'm happy that our good friend from New Jersey is with us. He will be proposing one of the other bills we have a hearing in here, which expands the area. I don't know whether it's right to do it or not, but the difference is his entire delegation from the state of New Jersey is in favor of it. This bill has the entire delegation from the state of Utah opposed to it. When we did the Cedar Mountain Wilderness Bill, we did an inventory of every private property in holding that is there. It's not been done on this particular bill. We moved the lines to meet the needs of private property holders. We had one private property holder that was running pipes along his land, which could have been included in the wilderness, to water wild horses. We moved that because we had the professionals on the ground working with us to come to the order where we needed to be. That is what happens. There have been the same pattern. Small bills in which you get local consensus, local people coming together, in which you actually have local government in consensus. None of that happens for this particular bill. What we need to do is go forward with the process that almost every editorial in the state of Utah says. Try to come to local consensus with people coming together, where the government agrees with individuals, not having something coming from Washington crammed down the throat of the people in Utah. Our goal should be to empower people, not make mandatory solutions. Our goal should be to try and look to the future, which small bills like the Washington County bill and the Cedar Mountain bill to move us forward is the raise of the future. This particular bill is a relic from the past. It has not been successful since the age of disco and will not be successful now or in the future. And we should not be spending our time on this. We should be spending our time trying to find proper solutions that will pass. That's only the first step. Are you ready for the second part, Mr. Chairman? If I have to do that, let me just ask one last statement. This is the last unanimous consent request to having statements from the following individuals, the following groups in Utah: the Americans for Responsible Recreation Access, American Motorcycle Association, the Blue Ribbon Coalition, the Motorcycle Industry Council, the Outdoor Activities Association, Recreational Off-Highway Digs Association, the Specialty Vehicle Institute, the Independent Petroleum Association of the Mountain States, and the Farm Bureau, Utah Farm Bureau Association, all of which have written letters in opposition to the bill. I ask those to be placed on the record as well.
Without objection, so ordered.
And with that, I will yield to whomever you'd like to hear.
Thank you very much. Let me turn to the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Hastings, for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assume your previous comment alluding to whether Mr. Bishop was done as a compliment. It was a compliment after I finish my remarks. Mr. Chairman, there are 6 bills in the